feeding. The NG tube's placed for feeding. I would suspect or hope that it's a core pack, but it might be a Levin. If it's a Levin, I'm going to be more cognizant of skin excoriation of the nares, skin breakdown. If it's for feeding, if it's for continuous feeding, I'm going to make sure that they're always sitting at least 30 degrees minimally, if not higher than that. I'm going to stop the tube feeding every 4 to 6 hours per the hospital protocol and check for gastric volume residual. And the way I check for gastric volume residual is I aspirate out the gastric contents. If it's greater than 100 or 2 times the administration rate, so if the administration rate is 75 mLs an hour, if it's greater than 150, I would put the tube feed on hold and notify the provider, because I don't want to keep on administering, because that implies to me that they may not be absorbing appropriately. With continuous feeding, once we do the initial x-ray and the pH, I don't need to recheck those things as long as the endowable mark is still in the proper spot. The tube feeding, not the NG tube, but the actual tubing needs to be changed every 24 hours. Regardless of the closed or open system, so basically you just disconnect it from the NG tube, throw it away, and get a new set going. Bye. Thanks for coming. Sorry I was late.
The tubing connected.
He said sorry.
Like not
Yeah.
the tube inside, but like
Yeah, not the actual NG tube.
So the one that.
It's like right here. Like this with this. What? So there's no NG tube here, right?
And that's why you data
No.
initial it.
This gets data initial. It's good for 24 hours. It's like, but think about it like it's like a plate you would eat off. You don't
Yeah.
eat off a plate. for
But
eating
where
out.
is there like a port similar to like the one-way valve port that you?
You know where you put the syringe into the
Yeah.
NG tube that goes into there.
Okay.
So this would just literally get pitched and you get a new set. This tubing is nice because it has both the free water available and not. For the continuous feeding, if our hospital or our facility has the machine and the tubing that automatically gives the free water, then I'm good to go. I just want to make sure I have it programmed. If it doesn't automatically give free water, when I check the GVR, I'm going to go ahead and give the ordered amount of free water, because we know that the tube feed is high in dextrose and can cause dehydration, and so we want to give the fluid so that they don't get dehydrated. Additionally, with any type of tube feed, we want to make sure that we're checking their AccuChecks. If it's continuous, it'd be every 6 hours, right? This is the thing that I said ACH that one day, and you guys were like, oh, freaking out. What is this? But that means it'd be 4 meals and 8 hours of sleep, and AccuCheck means a blood sugar. I would check it every 6 hours, and if it's bolus feeding, I would probably check it before each time I gave a bolus feed, okay? Which would probably be ACH, or something, be 4 meals and 8 hours of sleep. If it's bolus feed, everything stays the same. I have to use a syringe where I remove the piston, and then I check the GVR before I administer it. Once I check the GVR and we're good, as we discussed before, then I pull out the piston, I pour the amount of ordered tube feed in, probably maybe 120 as a normal dose, clamp it, let it go, hold 18 inches above the nares, and let it gravity pull it into the stomach, and then clamp it, add the next 60, let that go in, and then flush it with my free water. If either case I ever have a hard time with it working properly, I might go ahead and have to declog it, and the most common way to declog it would be that you guys got me, diet or otherwise, dark cola. It's the acidity that does the job. You could also mix meat tenderizer, which I've never seen anybody do, but it is accepted in practice to do that. If it's hooked up to decompression, you want to maintain usually low intermittent wall suction, which means it turns on and off, so you don't have continuous suction. Otherwise, it would cause a hematoma on the stomach, perhaps, because it would suck continuously, and you may not get a good flow. We want to set it up to less than 120 millimeters of mercury. We want to label, or did I show you guys how you put the tape and put your initials on it? Every shift, right, at 6 a.m., 2 p.m., and at 10 p.m. I can show you back there on the canister again if you want. Yeah, okay. And when we're suctioning, we make sure we turn it off when we would do our abdominal assessment, and we would administer medications. We turn it off for 30 minutes after medication administration. Never do listen to the abdominal sounds with it going, because you're going to hear borborygmy, or how did we say it? Borborygmy, whatever you guys want to say. I say borborygmy, but and then clearly, if they have bowel sounds present, you probably can stop the suction. So it's going to look really silly in court when you say that they have hyperactive bowel sounds that are loud in pitch and intensity, but you left it running. Because if that's true, then they probably could be eating, and you don't need to be decompressing them anymore, because their peristalsis has returned, right? And so, like, if I was ever an expert nurse, which I'll never do in court, I feel bad doing that, but I was an expert nurse, I would just laugh at you, right? Like, why would you do that? It makes no sense. No reasonable nurse would do that in that situation. As far as how you
Just put a
market,
piece of tape on here, and then here, this has been on for a few years. But I just wrote 6 a.m. and I put my initials, and that means at 6 a.m. there's 100 initially, and then at 1400 it was at 400. So the nurse that's working day shift would take credit for 400 minus 100 for 300 total. Does that make sense? Because the night shift took credit for 100, day shift would take credit for 300. And we need to do that. We have to do all of our intakes and outputs at 6 a.m. or 0600, at 1400 or 2 p.m., and at 2200, 10 p.m. Cannot be used for decompression. The only one that can be used for decompression is the Levin. Both can be used for feeding, but if it's the Levin for feeding, it should be short-term feeding, like less than 3 days, because it can cause excoriation. Or if we decide we're going to continue to feed longer than that, ask the doc, can we take out the Levin and throw down a core pack, or are we going to go with a peg tube, or are we going to do TPN or something else? Otherwise, we don't want to leave that Levin in. It's going to cause excoriation.
So that's a core pack.
This is a core pack. Uncle Sam wants
Used
you.
for feeding.
Put it here. Do you remember now?
Yes.
And then you pour this in.
Yeah.
And then you
And then you give free
That's
water.
fine, yeah.
right, let it run, and then you do it again. So you get the ordered
It
amount.
goes in really fast.
No, it goes in pretty slow.